I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Duluth City Councilors this week discussed how to plan for future growth without impacting the city's green space and beautiful views.
You can make a profound difference in someone's life by becoming an organ donor. During National Donate Life Month, our guests will share amazing stories of life-changing donations.
And we'll have the week's business headlines and bring you a news file story from 25 years ago.
It's all coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. This week's show was recorded on Wednesday due to the Easter holiday weekend. And Denny, we've got some great guests here, so let's get started.
All right, we sure do. Thank you, Julie, and welcome everyone. Duluth City Councilors spent time this week debating the best way to accommodate growth in the city. Duluth has gained a reputation as an active city with access to the outdoors, great views, and walkable neighborhoods. Councilors discussed the best way to make sure development is done in a thoughtful way that doesn't disrupt the elements that bring people here. Joining us now is Filipovich, Duluth City Councilor at Large, who proposed a zoning density ordinance this week. And also Noah Hobbs is an at-large Duluth City Councilman. Thank you both for being here. Zach, you mentioned publicly that you thought your ordinance was a little bit misunderstood. How so?
Well, first, it's a resolution helping to set a policy directive for city staff. It does not change any of the zoning height, so I think that kind of got lost in the discussion. But really as a way to talk about density and jumpstart that discussion of how we want our city to look when we grow our population and grow our tax base.
Mm-hmm. What types of projects would qualify as a high-density development, the type that you might be talking about?
Sure. So high-density developments or zoning really talks about getting a lot of people in a smaller space. So that really promotes a lot of different things. It promotes walkability, bikeability, two things that Duluthians really are starting to enjoy. It brings communities together. I was just talking with somebody earlier today who said that in other cities where they have these sorts of policies, people interact more. It promotes the arts and folks know their neighbors a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. What green spaces are left in the city's downtown and maybe central East Hillside area?
Sure. Well, we have a number of parks. It was discussed at council regarding a vacant lot, and some of those have actually been turned into community gardens, which are very nice things to have folks coming together and again sharing that space. And the more people you have around those green spaces, the more people can interact.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Hobbs, do you think it's important at this point to start having this kind of a conversation about how to grow the population, grow business without really expanding the footprint of Duluth?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't really expand the footprint of Duluth. We're fairly landlocked with municipalities around us in the lake. And I think a broader part of the conversation is we are going to have to build up and should, but there's also a lot of things that we can do in increasing density by infilling and bringing unproductive properties into a productive use and looking at our unified development code and talk about mother-in-law apartments which are above garages and allowing larger families to live on lots that we currently have. Or look at innovative ways to have senior housing on a longer lot, but maybe more narrow, have two smaller homes with smaller footprinted homes on one lot to allow that population to move out of their homes into something that they can manage more appropriately given their age.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, is there a need for additional tall buildings in downtown Duluth, and who would fill them?
Well, I think this was really meant to start this conversation about what Duluth is going to look like. At our council meeting, we were discussing population growth, and both in Duluth and in surrounding areas. I want Duluth to be growing in a sustainable way, and I think this is one way to do it. We need to have places for people to live and for places for people to work too. Mm-hmm. So I think that needs to be part of the discussion.
I think,
Go ahead. Well, reality is 50, 60 years goes by pretty fast. Are you both kind of looking ahead rather than perhaps your lifetime now?
Yeah, I think you absolutely have to when it comes to planning. I went to school for planning, so you definitely have to think 30, 40, 50 years ahead on how that's going to affect the population. I mean, we're dealing with having an influx of houses when we're 107,000 population, and we're dealing with the effects of now being 86,000.
Of course, when people hear the words that we have to grow up, the first thing that comes to mind would be skyscrapers in downtown Duluth or somewhere along the waterfront. People are so protective of the views here. Do you expect some pushback if you start playing around with those height requirements? And I'd like to hear from both of you on that.
Well, I know I've gotten some pushback
Yeah.
from this, even just talking about this, spurring this discussion. And again, this does not change any of those height restrictions that we currently have. We have along Superior Street, 180 foot. You cannot go taller than that unless you come and ask for a variance. In other places downtown, it's 116 feet. So, not even, or about maybe 10 stories. So
I think the tallest building in downtown Duluth is 16 stories.
that's correct, the
So
Allworth building.
Yes, so that building would be above and beyond what is currently allowed. We couldn't top that building?
Well, 180 feet would be about 18 stories. So that's below the current level.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about growing up, it's not necessarily just these skyscrapers. We look at Lincoln Park with the revitalization. They have a lot of commercial business on the first floor, and you can have 4 to 5 units of rental or even a condo on top of that. And I think that's also a mechanism that we have to encourage and utilize when we're increasing that density for efficiency of services.
Another topic that the council was discussing this week was, of course, the vacation rentals. What do you think needs to happen, Councilor Hobbs, in terms of maybe adjusting how the city decides what to do about vacation rentals, how many to have, where they can go, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we should still take a managed approach on the growth. I think they're definitely a benefit to the city. We don't have the ability to build hotels to increase the capacity for when we have, grandmas and tall ships here, and so this is a way to fill that need and allow people to have a unique Duluth experience. Certainly tweak some of the language on dense urban screen is something that we've heard a lot about, but I think overall the ordinance is pretty good and continue to manage that growth going forward.
Are you finding many people coming to the city council or to the city itself just asking, what do I have to do if I want to rent out my back bedroom for the summer?
Well, we're actually approaching that 60 limit cap that actually Councilor Hobbs and I proposed last year for this. So a number of applications are in, so we're not actually going to be hitting that cap very soon. But no, I agree with Councilor Hobbs that this is something that other communities have done. And they figured it out, and we'll tweak our language to make sure that it works for Duluthians and visitors who come here.
I understand one of your concerns, Councilor, was that there might be different rules for different parts of the city. Do you think it needs to be consistent, or should different zones maybe be set up for rental property?
Yeah, I think it needs to be consistent. Otherwise, we have a conversation and debate about having a hierarchy of neighborhoods that place a higher value and saying we can't have more than this, but it's fine for other neighborhoods. And so I definitely have significant hesitation when it comes to having that conversation. I think all neighborhoods are equally great in the city, and certainly if it works for one, why should it not work for the other?
Another issue in the city, of course, has been addressed in the last few days, rideshare. And how is rideshare handled differently from traditional taxi cabs?
Yeah, so first off, they're different. The state of Minnesota has ruled that there's different insurance requirements for taxi cabs and transportation network companies. And also the fact that a taxi cab owns the car and has significant control over the driver, whereas a transportation network company, 90-95% of the time, the car is a personal vehicle, and Uber and or Lyft doesn't necessarily have control over their driver on saying you have to work here, you have to work now, this is what you have to wear. So they are separate entities in that regard.
Does Duluth really need to move in that direction to kind of get on board with the 21st century?
Boy, all of this, talking about density, talking about rideshare and vacation rentals are all part of a term called the sharing economy, and it's a new maybe concept, but a lot of other communities, not only in the United States but around the world, are really utilizing these opportunities for people to come and enjoy different areas of town, whether staying there or traveling in cities. So I think we need to set some rules and make sure that it's done appropriately.
Currently, can Uber and Lyft undercut traditional cab companies?
That's
Yeah, so currently the way that TNCs work is they have an algorithm to to encourage drivers to enter into the platform, the electronic app. Let's say it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning. It'll be more expensive to take a TNC. The price will go up to encourage drivers. So certainly they could undercut a cab if they wanted to. You're going to have less drivers willing to work for that price. So the market will decide if somebody wants to enter at that point in time.
Does this new economy, though, have the potential of maybe undercutting some of the old economy? You know, whether it's the vacation homes undercutting the hotels, or Uber and Lyft undercutting cabs.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. You know, I actually kind of, if I can use an analogy, my mom is into gardening, and she prunes dead things off of her plants and to allow new things to grow. And economies can work in a similar way. And by just letting allowing new things to come into the economy and spur some of that growth might be a good way to advance.
The business world seems to be moving in a totally different direction. As we advance as a society, things change, always have. Do you see here in the city of Duluth, for example, with rideshare and taxi cabs, that someday we could see the end of the traditional cab companies?
I don't think that we'll ever see the end of traditional cab companies. There's definitely a niche market that is always going to use cabs. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the cab industry become more innovative and move forward in addressing demands. I think it's going to be
Good point.
a significant competition out of the gate, absolutely, but I think it's going to spur cabs to focus on response times, definitely make sure that their vehicles are better than the competitors. And so I think those that are going to rise to the occasion will stick around, and I think we'll certainly see the exit of some that aren't willing to rise to that occasion.
What about regulating these new businesses? Because it's a whole different model. How does the city stay on top of that and make sure that it is a level playing field?
Well, it's tough. We've had vacation dwelling units actually for a while. We changed and significantly changed it last year, and we're probably going to have to come back again at some point soon to look at some additional modifications as well. In all the great work that Noah has done on the ride shares, I expect that we might have to go back and tweak a few things sometime in the future with that too. But so we'll wait and see.
All right, councilors, with that, we have to end this discussion. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
While you stand in line at the post office with your last-minute tax return, imagine what happens once it leaves your hand. Behind the scenes, people and machines are working overtime to make sure your filing gets the April 15th postmark. Candy compares tax day to a holiday.
Christmas, all the Christmas cards. We're probably about as busy on tax day as we are at Christmas time.
But the only joy in this season is for those who get money back from Uncle Sam. Sarah waited till payday to turn over her check. She says a refund would have brought her in sooner.
This year I just didn't have my act together, but I probably would have gotten to it a little quicker if I knew I was getting some money out of it.
Duluth's main post office will process 250,000 pieces of mail itself. It will also be taking tax returns up to the deadline. But don't expect any special treatment once the clock strikes 12.
They always want to know if they bring it in 5 or 10 minutes late if we'll postmark it today, but it's got to be before midnight or we can't do that.
April is National Donate Life Month, a time to bring attention to the continuing need for organ donors. Some of you may have a friend or family member who has experienced the life-changing benefits of donation. But even with rising awareness of the importance of being an organ donor, thousands of people in our region continue to wait for a life-saving transplant. Here with more on this topic is Katelyn Wilson, Clinical Hospital Coordinator for Life Source, and Tom Saburn is a heart transplant recipient. And thanks to both of you for being here.
It's our privilege.
Tom, we're going to get to your story in just a moment, but first, Katelyn, maybe tell us about LifeSource and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. So LifeSource is the organ procurement organization designated to facilitate organ donation for our region, which is Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and a couple counties in Wisconsin. We also facilitate tissue donation in our region and work with the Minnesota Lions Eye Bank to take referrals, assess candidates for donation opportunities, and then help those families with that process.
So how does one become a donor?
One becomes a donor by registering themselves either at the DMV or online, and this year you are able to actually register through the DNR website if you're buying your hunting or fishing license there.
And how critical is the need?
It's incredibly critical. There are over 118,000 men, women, and children waiting for the life-saving gift of an organ transplant. We add a new name to that list every 10 minutes, and unfortunately 22 people die every day waiting.
Really? Tom, you were waiting for a while for a new heart. How long did you have to wait?
Well, actually, from the time my initial heart attack, there was close to 2 years. But I actually got on the list for donation at the time that they installed a heart pump, or they called it an LVAD, left ventricular assist device. And as soon as that had to be installed to keep me going, I was put on the list for transplants.
And you had this heart transplant a number of years ago.
It's been over 12 and a half years.
How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel great.
Has the whole experience changed your life and your outlook on life?
Considerably. And with conversations with other transplant patients, I can tell you the biggest change is that a person's priorities change. Some of the things prior to transplant that seem so awful important, all of a sudden, they don't mean all that much anymore. You get to come to the realization that what we can do for humanity means a whole lot more than what our own particular needs might be.
Is that similar to what you hear from other folks, Katelyn?
Absolutely. It's a life-changing event to not only be ill and need a transplant, but then certainly go through that process of being on the waiting list, getting that call, which Tom can attest to better than certainly I could. But it is also a really incredible experience for people on the donation side, and that's really where LifeSource works with donor families to help them recognize where their loved one can save lives through donation and transplantation when they're often facing a tragic situation.
Are more and more people becoming donors, Katelyn, or is there a lull in donations?
More and more people become donors all the time, absolutely. Our current donor designation rate is about 63%, which is actually substantially lower when we look at the research that's done that shows that overwhelmingly people support donation and transplantation. So that's a huge part of National Donate Life Month, is to encourage people to make that decision and document that decision and certainly let their families know.
Are there certain organs or tissues that are more in demand than others, and do people who become donors have the option of saying, I want to give this, I don't want to give this? Can they pick and choose?
To some degree, certainly. When you register as a donor, you can certainly let your family know what things that you would be more interested in donating, things like that, because when that time comes, we have a very family-centered approach, and we want to honor your wishes to ensure that we're only really allocating things that you would want allocated. In terms of, are there organs that are more needed than others, that just completely depends on the transplant list, and tissues the same way.
Sure. Are organs moved all over across the United States, or do they pretty much, if there's a donor in Minnesota, it stays in this region, or not necessarily?
Probably. So the allocation process, which is incredibly complex, really starts with our local region and our local transplant centers. But if we don't have a match locally, then we will continue to allocate out until we've either exhausted that list or we've found that perfect match.
Tom, were you an organ donor before this?
Definitely.
Did you have it on your card?
Yeah. And I'm still a donor.
Really?
But because of the fact that I've had a transplant and the medications that are involved to keep that transplant from being rejected, I doubt that my organs would be used, although tissues would still be used. Eyes might still be able to be used.
Are there a lot of limitations in terms of people who can or cannot give, or is pretty much everybody able to donate something?
When we take referrals, the majority of referrals ultimately rule out, and that is because of the limitations of our current technology and things like that. And so I say that, but it's important that you don't rule yourself out, because we don't know what innovations are on the horizon, and we are constantly looking for ways to include more and more people. And I think another important part of designating yourself as a donor at the DMV or online is not just making a decision that, yes, that's what I want to do. It's also saying, I support people like Tom. I support donation and transplantation. I support those people that have already said yes to donation and have gone on to save lives of others. So it's more than just the decision. It's a show of support.
Are blood relatives always a good donor for someone in the family, or not necessarily?
I wish I had a really good answer for you. At LifeSource, we work with donation after death. So a transplant center would be a much better resource
see.
for anything related to living donation.
I see.
Tom, did you ever get a chance to thank the family of the donor or
definitely.
establish some sort of a relationship with them?
Actually, the donor family, the donor's mom contacted me less than a year after transplant. We didn't get a chance to actually meet them physically until 5 years after transplant. But that was a wonderful get-together.
Do you feel a strong connection with the family?
Oh my. The biggest factor with meeting the donor family was that the donor family, and I don't know how common this is, but the donor family always seemed to have a wonder as to who it was that was able to go on living because of their son's loss. And what they told me, my wife and I both, was that by being able to meet us and get to know us, they were able to put a closure on their son's death, which is a wonderful thing.
What's the recovery period like, Tom, after having a new heart put in?
It's pretty amazing. 6 days after transplant, they told me to leave the hospital.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You go to like a halfway house before you come home?
Well,
Or?
not a halfway house. They had an apartment at the University of Minnesota.
Oh, really? All right.
It was part of the student housing, and they wanted us to stay there because I had to be close, because they keep close track. They do testing on a regular basis, sometimes every day, to watch for. If you're going to have rejection, it's going to happen pretty much right away. And the longer you're out on without rejection, the better chances you have of making it. So it's pretty amazing.
I know you said that you deal mostly with cadaver donations, but occasionally you do hear about people who donate a kidney to somebody or bone marrow. Any thoughts related to that that you could share as you celebrate this month?
Absolutely. And National Donate Life Month is really a celebration of everyone that's been touched by donation and to honor donors of all kinds. So certainly those people are part of the national celebration.
What's the one message that you want to get out to people as you're here today?
Have a conversation with your family. There's amazing stories and people out there in our region and across our country, just like Tom, who have benefited from the gracious act of a complete stranger. And we want you to have that conversation with your loved one and have it now.
I'd put the same question to you.
Well, I do a lot of volunteer work for LifeSource, trying my best to advocate organ donation. And I've found that anytime I get in a place where I see young couples or young moms with babies, little children, to let them know that that child, as much as you'd hate to even think of something tragic happening, those things do happen. And that's not the time to think about whether or not you'd allow that child to be a donor.
All right, well,
So
thank you.
it's amazing.
All right, congratulations on your new lease on life, and thank you so much for the important work that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time for the weekly business news from the folks at Business North. Rail shippers in and around Grand Rapids have long lamented the high cost of transit, which they link to a lack of rail competition. The Grand Rapids City Council allocated $5,000 Monday to study that situation. The new investigation will assess rail engineering and construction costs to attract a carrier willing to compete against Burlington Northern. The new study will supplement previous ones conducted since 2009.
Mesabi Metallics said Monday another potential buyer hopes to become owner and developer of the former SR mine and partially completed pelletizing plant in Nashwauk. The latest proposal emerged from a group that calls itself Chippewa Capital Partners. The new suitor is affiliated with ERP Iron Ore, which purchased Magnetation's assets to resolve a 2016 bankruptcy. Mesabi Metallics filed its reorganization plan in January. A third bidder, Cliffs Natural Resources, has offered $75 million. The offers will be reviewed at an April 26th court hearing.
The Minnesota Senate has approved a tax bill amendment that would assist area counties that lost a tax appeal. It would subsidize counties that must repay millions of dollars to UPM Blend and Paper Company, which successfully appealed its tax assessment. Concern was raised by some legislators that no mechanism exists to address overpayments in such instances. Counties affected by the lawsuit include Itasca, St. Louis, Couchiching, and Aiken. Without state help, county officials say the cost could be devastating. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment about our show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to Almanac North at wdse.org. Don't forget to check the WDSE website when you're looking for the latest program information, updates on station events, and other news from public TV. And Denny, I'm still waiting for a spring warm-up. Maybe this Easter weekend can be the start of a warming trend.
Well, winds off the lake tend to keep things cool here in town.
You're going to be out hunting for eggs?
I will. I'll have an Easter egg hunt with the grandkids.
All right, don't knock any of them over.
I won't.
Okay, for Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend, everyone.